Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. And today I'm going to be doing the statue of Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm going to start by just showing you the base. As with all things I collect, there's a bit of a story with this one. So first of all, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I already did a Tifa Lockhart statue review from Final Fantasy VII Remake a couple months ago. I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago. And that was a long one. That was like an hour and a half. Quite a lot to talk about. It was my first real like Chinese statue of like a video game character or anime character. I don't collect video game or anime statues. That was like basically my first one. So a lot of learning curve associated with that. As with a lot of hobbies, each hobby kind of has its own community, its own culture, a lot of information, and obviously it took me a while to sort of get educated in that world. I don't plan on really delving into that world very much more after my 2 Tifa statues. This is the second one. So I gave a lot of like background already back there, the whole cast off business where the clothes are cast off the statue. So you get like a nude statue and you put the clothes on, which is something apparently that's pretty popular with anime and video game statues, especially in the unlicensed world. And that was by a company called Oxygen or O2 Studios or Neoclassical Studios. I don't understand what exactly the relationship is for those studios, whether they're separate studios joining together to make the statue, or whether they just decided to make this really weird name called Neoclassical O2 Studios. So in that video, and I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but in that video I talked about the fact that Final Fantasy Remake is sort of a game that's been requested for a long time. Finally came out for the PS4. Gorgeous, really nice game, amazing game. People are waiting with bated breath for the second part to come out. And so the new renders of the classic Final Fantasy VII characters for the remake, of course, was mind-blowing. All of them really, Cloud, Barret, Red 13, but the girls especially, highlighted by Aerith, Tifa, and Yuffie. And Tifa, not surprisingly, kind of had the most attention. She's kind of the girl with the most sex appeal in the original game, to, I guess, funny or not so funny effect, depending on perspective. Remember, it was released literally decades ago. I mean, she was a sprite with the really big boobs, the really big breasts, So, not surprising that Tifa as a character from Remake would get a lot of love when it comes to statues. And all of them are going to be unlicensed. I'm going to repeat why that is in case some of you don't understand. It's because Square Enix, who makes the game, the Final Fantasy games, they don't typically license out statue licenses to third parties. They've always kind of in general taken care of that themselves. And so they're not like Sideshow or Prime One, XM. They don't play that game. They're not like Marvel or Disney. They don't hand out those licenses. They keep it in-house. And so if you're going to make statues of the characters, you're going to have to do it essentially as unlicensed. And hopefully, and then they're all from China, of course, Asia. Hopefully you don't get sued. Square, of course, would love to sue all of them, but it's kind of the Wild West in China. And as long as they don't make too many of them, these companies appear and disappear all over the place. It's not really worth it to go after them. So to make a long story short, there's like tons of unlicensed Tifa statues from Final Fantasy VII Remake, at least 5, 6, 7 of them. And the tricky thing here is that you're sort of forced to go by the renders, and the renders all look obviously completely kick-ass because they're done on a computer, and in real life, of course, by the time they get through the prototype of the production, it's not going to look like the renders, okay? But at least the renders give you kind of an idea of what the company is going for. It has like a general pose. You do have some idea, based on the render of the portrait. And while there are going to be obviously huge differences in quality when you finally get the production in your hand, the renders do give you some idea of what to expect. And so based on the renders, I chose the neoclassical O2 Studios version, and then I also chose this one by Ping Ping Studios. Now at the time when I chose Ping Ping Studios, I didn't know very much about them. I can tell you that my first impression of the name was that it seemed kind of like mildly pornographic almost. Like, what sort of a studio makes like naked statues of anime video game girls and they call themselves Pink Pink? Like, they're not just Pink Studios, they decided to call themselves Pink Pink Studios. So that kind of gave me pause. But when you analyze sort of the renders, their Tifa was truly a beautiful, beautiful render. In my opinion, probably like one of the best renders when they were trying to market about a year and a half to 2 years ago, the statue. And since Tifa, one of her defining characteristics is sex appeal, it seemed like there would be sort of a pretty good match with a studio like Pink Pink Studios. So I decided to go for that. And so when the statue came, to no surprise, since now I was expecting it, it did come with a body that was completely nude. Now, this, of course, was already shown in the renders as well as some of the prototype information. And I wasn't surprised by that. So I was thinking what to do to best review the statue. I went on YouTube both to take a look at how to properly put the statue together and also to get some different perspectives. And I'm not surprised that there's a lot of Asian collectors, from Thailand, China, Singapore, Hong Kong, etc. And there was a lot of, opinions, very valuable information I actually learned. And so the prevailing fear is that, I guess if you show her, nude, that the video may be taken down and you might get a warning or something like that. YouTube doesn't really like that. So none of those YouTube videos that I looked at showed her cast off, right? Now, interestingly, I did make a video, like I said before, of Tifa from the Neoclassical Studios or O2 Studios. And I showed everything. I mean, I showed her, with the clothes off. I showed her breasts, her buttocks. I went in depth to all of this detail. And, it got about 12,000 views. And I haven't received a warning or it wasn't taken down. Now, granted, my thumbnail doesn't show, of course, a nude model. And it could be that at an hour and a half, maybe I screwed up YouTube's scanning algorithm, and maybe nobody in their right mind is going to listen to like a 90-minute discussion about a stupid statue, and maybe that's what's flown under the radar. But for whatever reason, or it's like very clear that my statue review was very much artistic, and there was nothing pornographic at all about it. So I could have maybe gotten away with it, but this time I decided to try not to do that. So let's kind of be clear here that when we're talking about these statues from Asia, I'm moving up a little bit, we're talking about these statues. The sculpt that, if you want to really appreciate the beauty of the sculpt and the point of that sculpt, it's going to be the nude body, okay? Because that's where all of the detail, all of the art, all of the work from these studios, they're going to try to sculpt the most beautiful, curvaceous, female body for you. That is actually the goal when they're making these statues. And then they're going to give you a good portrait of Tifa Lockhart. And so when you are only reviewing this work and you put this piece of plastic over that nude body. And that's what this is. This is literally just a piece of plastic. No matter how good the detail, you can actually see the fabric here. You can actually see the, hopefully, maybe against here, you can actually see the texture of the t-shirt. You can see sort of the wrinkles as it's hugging her breasts, and sort of the curvature of the breasts and how the fabric lays across the breast. But this is basically just a cheap piece of plastic, okay? And we'll get into that in much more detail later on for this statue. You put this onto her body, and you've basically lost really all of the beauty of the sculpt, right? You've lost all of that beautiful anatomy. And I'm a guy, of course, that's fine. I enjoy that, but I enjoy the male musculature as well. I'm a big anatomy. I'm a big, what's the proper word? Like I'm a connoisseur of good human anatomy. That's probably due to my, because of my background, as a surgeon, due to my training. And I guess I see the nude body maybe a little bit differently than somebody who's not in the medical field per se. I don't get too much titillation from stuff like that. I just kind of appreciate the details. I do cut into, human bodies as part of my job. And so it's a very kind of different aesthetic when I look at statues sometimes. I just appreciate, the veining, the texturing, the accuracy of the bodies, how well it's done, how well it's created. And I do that for both, women and men. And so both neoclassicism, I think is the name, both neoclassicism and also Ping Ping Studios, whatever people they employed to sculpt the Tifas, all did just amazing jobs. And so when you cover up that anatomy with this sort of cheap plastic looking clothes, it does ruin the effect somewhat. And that's okay. When I display them, obviously I'm not going to display like a near nude statue. That's obviously wouldn't be appropriate, and you couldn't really do that. And as far as the detail of the clothes, you can see here that it's actually not bad. You can see the leather texture. The belt is gorgeous, very nicely sculpted. You can see the straps here as well. All of this is basically plastic, but again, they did a fantastic job. You can actually see the stitching, all of the little stitches sort of molded and casted. You can see the buckles. So this is fantastic work all around. Both back and forward, and then of course you have to kind of sculpt the butt underneath the skirt. The idea, this is a leather skirt. And you can see the sort of the pockets again. Really nice work on the stitch work, the stitches and all of that stuff. I'm trying to get a good view of this thing here under the light. So they did a great job. Again, this is maybe what a really tight mini skirt would look like on a woman's buttocks and all of that. But it doesn't change the fact again that this is still plastic clothes, which when you snap over her body, it's going to look crude. It's going to look essentially like a plastic piece of plastic is covering her body. And in no way, shape, or form would this ever be better than actually sculpting the texture of the clothes onto the body. If they apply that same skill and attention to detail to that effect that they did to the nude body, it would be incredible. But again, in this niche of collecting, that's not apparently what the customer base really likes. They like the idea of having these nude bodies, and they like the idea of putting clothes on them and doing it in a modular fashion to their personal, preference. And if that's the market, that's what the companies are going to do. So 14 minutes and 30 seconds in, what was my compromise? Well, this company actually also gave or packaged these really flimsy bikinis, both a top and a bottom. Again, no YouTube video decided to use them because I guess they felt it was too risque, or they thought they were going to break it. But I decided that I am going to use it because when you put it on, you do cover the nipples and you do cover the pubic area. And as long as that's done, I don't think that YouTube necessarily would have a huge problem with that, because there's plenty of content that shows, again, female and male bodies in bikinis, a lot of content with statues and all that sort of stuff with pretty risque material. So as long as those parts are properly covered, I don't think there's going to be a problem. And I was flirting with the idea of just using small stickers just to cover up the, the nipples and all of that stuff. But I realized that the packaged in clear bikini that the company provided essentially did the same thing. So I'm now going to finally pan out. You can see Cactar, one of the Final Fantasy classic enemies, in the background. You see the base pretty nicely, and I'm going to pan up and I'm going to show the entire body. This is the nude sculpture with the pubic areas and the nipples covered by the see-through bikini that the company provided. So here we go. And this is Pink Studios Tifa Lockhart, okay? We're gonna go back. So you can see her essentially in all her glory. So this is the pure sculpt right here. And this is with cast off. So I guess no other video, I guess, dared to show her, which again, I mean, in my opinion, it's not that big a deal. Okay, so she's almost nude, but you've seen this before. So this is the bikini that's actually provided for her. And I think with this on, there's a decent compromise, because you can actually appreciate the detail and the skill that went into sculpting this body. I think it's amazingly done. Of course, the problem here is that this is not really maybe Tifa Lockhart herself. The Tifa in the cartoons, or not the cartoons, the Tifa in the video game does have curvaceous figure, but not to this extent. But again, it takes real skill to kind of sculpt realistic female anatomy. The breasts are excellently done. You can see the curvature here of the belly and the muscles gently defined. It's actually anatomically correct even in the pubic area, which is pretty impressive actually that they went that far. Legs are beautiful. When we turn around here, you can again see the excellent work on the buttocks, and you can see the two dimples here in the small of the back. So this bikini is placed very, very carefully. There's very, very small magnets right over here that can come apart, and then you can very, very carefully put it on. It's not meant to be perfect. Again, you can see that the magnets here don't actually technically even meet, and if you snap this together here, then the other one will come apart. But again, as far as it goes, it does its job. Same thing with the bikini. The plastic actually prevents her arm from going on, and you have to sort of wriggle the plastic of the bikini out of the way in order for Tifa's right arm to even be attached. Okay, and the magnetic clasp is again on the back. So this is not black in color. It is see-through, except for the very small opaque areas that strategically cover up the nipples. So I like this mainly because this again gives me an opportunity to showcase the actual beauty of the sculpt. So when people sort of criticize or bag on Pink Studios because they're saying like this is terrible or whatnot, well, it's not. It's difficult. It's not completely fair for these videos to talk about that because they're not able to show you the actual beauty of the sculpt. That would be like, say, taking Captain America or Thor and basically covering him from the neck down in this huge cape, and you're not able to appreciate any of the muscular anatomy, any of those details for those characters. And this is kind of the same thing. So for the first time, you're appreciating in real time what this sculpt is of Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII Remake. And this is what you're getting. This is the beautiful nude that you're getting, and this is the foundation of sort of the rest of the statue. And based on that alone, you can see that she is a very, very well sculpted, very, very beautiful statue. In my opinion, much, much better, loads better, okay, than the sculpts of, say, Mayfly or MH, because they are sculpting the clothes on Tifa. And based on that, they have the ability to really give us like a very, very good statue, very, very good anatomy with the clothes on the again on the body, and they haven't, in my opinion, done that good a job from the reviews I've seen on YouTube. They have the advantage over Neoclassicism, O2 Studios, and Ping Ping Studios in that they're not starting with a nude body and you're putting just basically plastic clothes on them. So anyways, the bikini doesn't hide very much, so you can see all of the detail from her. This is truly very, very good. Now, the problem here is that because of just the lighting and my, admittedly crappy phone, it doesn't give you a very good idea of the coloration. The criticism for Ping Ping Studios, which is actually hilarious, is that her flesh is too pink. And I can definitely appreciate that, but unfortunately you're not going to be able to see it as much because just of the lighting and the way my phone is picking her up. But in real person, I can appreciate that she's slightly pink, but I can tell you again, that's nowhere near as bad as what they're making out to be. She's flesh colored, and again, it's a tinge pink on the pink side, but again, nothing absolutely ridiculous. So I think the paint job is top notch. I think the anatomy again of the female body, top notch, accurate, very, very beautiful nude body. And finally, from here, we're getting to the portrait. Now, the Neoclassicism Studios gave us 2 portraits of Tifa, one with glass eyes, one without. Here, Ping Ping Studios just gave you one. This is definitely not accurate. I'm going to repeat, this is definitely absolutely not accurate to the way Tifa looks like in Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's been a fiasco so far. There's been no studio that has given us a frankly accurate look of her. Some have come close. I do say that Mayfly Studios has come closer. Some of these studios have come closer, but the facial details, it's just the expression, it's still off. And to Ping Ping Studios' credit, they basically gave the middle finger to that. They didn't look like they even attempted to try to give us the facial model from the game. And so they just basically kind of gave us the Ping Ping Studios version of Tifa. I guess this is not really Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is basically, I guess if you want to call this, basically like a stripper cosplaying as Tifa Lockhart, if you want to, go that far with this sort of picture of her almost nude. So getting really close, the eyes here are very nice, brown, very beautiful. They're not glass, but this is very good. It's the right amount of makeup. She does not have too much makeup applied, as you can see. I'm just kind of trying to move her around so you kind of have a idea of how the light plays across her face and the shadows play across her face. But I think it's actually quite appropriate. Let me put my hand back there so maybe you can see. She has the right amount of lipstick, nice earring. There's nothing about the face that I think is kind of ridiculously done or really badly done. It's got the right amount of makeup on it. And it's a beautiful face. It's not, again, accurate to Tifa's face, but it's a beautiful interpretation of her face. And I like her expression quite well. Some of the expressions on some of the other studios' Tifas are just plain goofy. It's just weird. And sometimes the facial details are really soft. Like the print wasn't really clean or something like that. So again, while not accurate, this is pretty darn good. Obviously, the render is gorgeous, much better makeup effects, much better detail. But if I, paid $300 to $400 and gave this head to some of the masters out there on the internet who specialize in portraits, I have a little doubt that they could make this head just as good as the render. Okay, so I think the sculptural detail of the portrait is there. It is good. So moving back again, you're going to see her close up with the face. You're going to see the torso. The pose is absolutely to die for. Excellent pose. Very, very nice pose. The way she's standing, her hands, all of that. I cannot fault the pose at all. Very beautiful art design. trying to move back. So again, you can see the entire statue from multiple angles and how she's standing. Trying to catch the base as well. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Have to really move back to see her. So there you go. And that's what, again, true appreciation of this statue is. And again, I said it before, if these other YouTube videos just kind of show her with her clothes on, you're missing essentially more than half of the point of the statue, the quality of the statue. Okay, so we're going to put these guys on now, and I'm going to have to obviously jump cut the video because it's going to be a nightmare putting these guys on, and we're going to get into that. So let's talk about the base. This is without doubt, the best base of any of the Tifas of any of the studios. Okay, so we'll start by just kind of looking at the detailing of the work here, all of this, very, very nice relief work. Moving it around, it's got very nice paint of the stone, weathering of the stone. It has these cathedral windows. This is from a scene from the game, where they went to the church and where I think Cloud first met Aerith. So all of that is very, very beautifully done all the way around. You can kind of see the metal work. The paint could be better, but this is very nice detail. Again, you can see the flower right here. And up to the top, you can see that this is the symbol of Final Fantasy VII Remake and the original Final Fantasy VII. This is Meteor. And then again, very, very, beautiful metal painting all the way around. And you can see all of the details over here. So the base by itself is very pretty. And then you have, of course, Cactar with his open mouth over here. I don't know why they chose Cactar particularly. I think it's just a very small, cute Final Fantasy, character or monster. But yeah, this is actually sharp right here, and then you plug it in. So the Cactar is kind of a nice accent on the base. Okay, so that's already really, really nice. But based on the detail alone, that wouldn't justify this as being the best base. In point of fact, then I think the metal debris and the treads from the neoclassicism Tifa is pretty good, and Mayflies has a pretty nice one too with the gargoyles and all that other stuff. But what sets this base apart is that it's very cunningly hidden behind this triangular, piece. If you gently take it off, there's actually a switch, and if you press that switch, it actually turns the light on the inside of the base on, and this is the only Tifa statue with a light up base. So when you do that, the light shines out, and now these cathedral windows look stunning. Unfortunately, I can't show you on the camera all the little colors that are now highlighted. I think you can see it just here. You can kind of see a little hint of that, but you can also see all the different colors. And now it's like, of course, beautifully lit up. And this is very bright. I hope you can appreciate how bright this is. It actually lights up everything. All of this stuff now is brilliantly lit up. You can again see some of that detail here, but you can see I'm going really close, and you can see how it just lights up beautifully. It's a circle of light. It's a very, very mesmerizing effect. Let me get really close. There you go. Now you can see it. So now you can actually kind of see all of that detail in the stained glass. I don't believe this is real glass, unfortunately, but you can kind of appreciate now all of this, and I'm just kind of turning the base around. You can see the light from within shining out. And again, the videos don't give you enough credit for this effect. It is simply stunning when you do that. And when you see it again in person, there's a limit to what a photograph can never show this, but even a YouTube video, it doesn't really show you how pretty this looks. And I think from different angles, you're now kind of seeing, again, sort of the different colored window, the different colored parts of that window with the light behind it. Very, very beautiful. And so for that reason, this space handily wins like best base ever done for Tifa Lockhart. And also very cunningly, placed. And when I first got the statue and the base, I was looking around because I knew I had to put in 4 AA batteries on the bottom, which is like an insane amount of batteries. You're like, what the F does it need so many batteries for? And my eyes just went right over this little spot where you push the button. So when you put this, again, this metal looking triangular piece on there, it camouflages perfectly. So that is a little bit of genius design for the base, very unique, and I really appreciate it. And now you can kind of see kind of how this looks with her standing on it. And it also doesn't take up too much room. The neoclassicism base was a literal nightmare to put together. I had to go on YouTube again just to get help. So hopefully, my YouTube video now adds to that body of knowledge. But it was just a literal fiasco to put that base together, and it took a lot of room. And this base, again, is elegant, very small, a very small footprint, and again, glorious. So that's number one. We talked already about the detailing. A lot of reviews have talked about the shoes. Look at the detail of these shoes. You can see every little individual stitch. You could swear in all the world that this is actually real rubber soles. This is real leather. You can see each individual buckle, the way the shoelaces are tied, and then of course the texturing of the socks. So one person jokingly said that the shoes are like the best part of the statue. I mean, it's close, but no, the best part of the statue is actually her body, okay? And I say this like in a very non-sexual way, right? But purely in terms of, again, anatomy and quality of sculpt, her body is knockout, okay? Very, very good. That's the highlight, which again, sadly, can't be shown. This body looks amazing, and that face looks amazing. Beautiful portrait, beautiful body. But the details on the shoes, of course, is something else. Similarly, there's wonderful detail on the hands as well. You can kind of see the good painting, weathering, gunmetal gray, nice pose with the fingers. A lot of good details with these fingers here. Very hard to sculpt the hands and the fingers and that type of thing. You can see that this is still a little bit loose because, again, of the bikini plastic. Good texturing here. And then, of course, the hair is wonderfully done. Here's where she's tied it, and kind of sculpting the flow of the hair. Of course, she has video game hair, so this is completely unrealistic what the hair is looking like, but they sculpted it flowing in a very, very nice way. So we've covered basically everything there is to cover in terms of, I think, of the statue itself. This is the heart of the Pink Pink Studio statue. The nude body, the portrait, all the way down to the pose, and then of course the stunning base. Very, very nice. Okay, so now we're going to move on, and we're going to go to the other half of the review, which is her with her clothes on. This is now, of course, the classic Tifa look. But before doing it, I do want to also bring up the fact that there is no certificate of authenticity, but there is a very classy way of showing you what the number is. You actually get a bona fide metal coin with Tifa's face in boss relief over it. It says Tifa. And then here, if you look closely enough, I don't think I can, I'm gonna try to move it to the side. It does tell you actually the company or where it's from. It's made in Singapore. So there's Singapore right here. And then if you turn it around, you see Pink Pink Studios, the logo. And in the front, it's so hard to show you. But if you look super carefully, God, this is like a nightmare to show. Hold on a second here. Can I even show it? Yeah, this is a nightmare to show. But if you look really close, you can see the edition size, 199. Hopefully you can see that 199 Singapore, and then the number 13. Okay, so here it goes, 13 out of 199. I think I showed you if you look closely enough, you can pause the video. So it gives you this nice little coin holder, and then again, Tifa, 13 out of 1. And oh, I'm so stupid. This is the better way. Sometimes, again, you go too close, you defeat the purpose yourself. So from this angle and far away, the detail shows up. You can clearly see 13 out of 199 in Singapore. The bottom of the base, the 13, was actually rubbed out. So I didn't really know what I had, but the bottom of the base also says Singapore. Now this is very interesting because there's only supposed to be 199 of these. But again, I think Ping Studios, like a lot of these Chinese companies, may be cheated. Because when I look at some of these other YouTube reviews of Tifa, they show the back, they show the coin, and I've seen at the bottom, instead of Singapore, I see Thailand, I also see Taiwan. And in fact, Spartan Urk, who's one of the YouTube reviewers who's very much into this and has been following Ping Studios for a long time, his statue is from Taiwan, actually. And here's the kicker. Do you know what his number is? His number is number 13. So Spartan Uruk has number 13, and I have number 13, except his is 13 out of 199 in Taiwan, and mine is 13 out of 199 in Singapore, right? So the obvious question then is, what's real? Is Ping Studios making 200 from each country? Like we got 200 from Taiwan, 200 from Thailand, 200 from Singapore, or are some of the others recast? That I don't know. I can tell you that I bought this from a company in Asia called Figure Ace, and I found them off Facebook. They seem very professional. And if I had to guess, I would guess that if there were any recasts, that the Singapore version would not be the recast. Okay, that seems to be more legitimate. But this is a mystery that, frankly, I can't answer, and maybe some of you out there may be able to do that. But again, I have the same number as Spartan Uruk. The only difference is mine is from Singapore, as you can clearly see. On this coin, you can see Singapore, and the base says Singapore as well. And his was Taiwan. The reason I bring this up is because there are some complaints of paint application. There's some complaints of, again, quality of the clothes, and there's also complaints of her face. And it could be that maybe, the problem with some of those issues is that some of the other YouTube reviewers maybe got recasts, very, very good recasts, and maybe recast is a term that is meaningless when none of this is licensed to begin with. But, there might be a difference in quality depending on which factory did these pieces. And if, again, we go by the bottom of the base and we go by the coin, mine came from the batch from Singapore, and I'm quite pleased with the production quality. Okay, so as far as that goes, I wanted to get that out there. Finally, in terms of, well, maybe I'll save this for the second part of the video. I actually had to superheat these pieces of plastic. When they came, the fit was absolutely horrendous. They were off by over 4 millimeters, which that's a big deal. Okay. Same thing with the skirt. You can see here, even after heating it, I haven't finished the job. There's still, you can see this step off. You can clearly see the step off at the very top here, but it's a lot better after initial work. You can see down there it's a little bit off from the front and the back crotch piece. I'm going to superheat it again with a blow dryer before I finally try to put her on. When you put on the black mini skirt here, as well as putting on the head with the black hair, there's literally like a 99% chance that some of the black is going to rub off on her body. It's going to leave very ugly looking black scratch marks. Fear not, those are actually quite easy to take off. There's many different ways of doing it. You can use warm water with a towel to gently rub, or even isopropyl alcohol. Do not use concentrated alcohol. That can damage the paint on her body. But actually, I just used this. This was something, again, I mentioned in the other review. This was something we discovered when we were trying to get rid of paint marks from Superman's red cape on his neck. And just very gentle, get a really good eraser. I mean, this is just a stupid pink eraser from a pencil, if you get one of those like a German rubber like Stein something, like, you know, the white rubber erasers, or get one of those erasers that, you know, just spend a few extra bucks, get a really good eraser that you use for drafting or something like that, and you just kind of gently, you know, go back and forth. This will get rid of the black rub marks instantly, and then you just take a little wet napkin or wet towel, just dab. There were black marks all over the inside of Tifa's right breast, just like scratches and black marks from where the hair touched it when I was trying to put on her portrait, and it snapped into place with a magnet. It scratched up, you know, this breast area really badly. And as you can see, I'm showing you really closely, and you can see that there's absolutely nothing you can see here. So don't worry about that. That comes off very easily. And you are going to have to use a blow dryer or hot running water. I recommend a blow dryer. And you're going to superheat this. And when you superheat it, it's going to melt and soften up. And when it softens up, you are going to be able to bend all of this. You still have to be gentle. You can still break it, but when it's like soft, you're going to be able to bend it the way you want to, and hopefully that will create a better fit as this then goes onto her body. Okay, so I'm going to have to stop here, and I will see you after the jump. And after the jump, we're going to have her clothes on board, her bikini off. And now that you have seen her in all her glory, so to speak, you then get to see the effect with her clothes on. And that'll probably be the shorter aspect of the review, to be honest with you, because there's simply not as much to talk about. I mean, the pose is the same. We've gone over the base, the pose, the details, you know, all of that. So it's just going to be basically showing her with the plastic top and the plastic skirt on board and seeing what she looks like. So before we go to that portion, I'm just going to slowly turn around some more so you can again appreciate the anatomy. It's kind of hard to appreciate the anatomy from the back because the hair is in the way, but again, you can see the scapula, the muscles, all the dimples, you know, the way her butt is sculptured, the buttocks, just excellent. You know, the way, you know, the buttocks are lined with her foot forward, the right foot forward. The way the anatomy is, excellent work. And again, not a surprise. I mean, this is, after all, what Pink Studios does best. If you're going to buy a statue from Pink Studios, you should know what you're getting. I mean, there was one reviewer who was really disappointed and upset about this. Like, he can't understand, like, oh, why do they even have these cast-off things? It's really bad. And I mean, I understand his frustration because, yes, you know, it does look horrible, especially if you don't understand, if you're like a rookie and you don't understand what has to be done to just even give yourself a fighting chance to get these clothes on without scratching. But again, you're missing the point. It's like if you're getting a statue from Pink Studios, this is actually what you're expecting. This is the work you're expecting for what you're paying for. And as far as I'm concerned, they did that work extraordinarily well. And we're going to have to cover it up, of course, with the cheap stuff, which is a shame. I mean, in reality, again, from a purely artistic point of view, from a purely connoisseur of human anatomy point of view, you know, if you're paying for Pink Studios, you want to actually display her like this in your display cabinet. That's what you're wanting to get. But you can't do that. You know, that would be unfortunately silly. You know, polite company is not going to accept that. But just letting you know, like, that's the standard. You know, this is actuality. You know, what you are truly buying. And we're going to cover it up again, you know, because of decorum, for the sake of decorum. But in terms of the quality of the statue you're buying, this is what actually you're, you know, this is actually what you're supposed to be getting. All right, very good. Thanks for your attention so far, and I will see you after the jump. All right, everybody, welcome back. So clothes are now put on Tifa. For you, that was a second, and for me was an entire day. So quite a lot to go over. But let's just start by enjoying the statue. Let me press again the light. Get this thing properly put on. Again, beautiful lighting. Yeah, this base really is to die for. Amazing base. You have to hand that to Pink Studios. Okay, so I'm not going to tease you like I did with the first part of this review. Let's just go right on up and check her out. The clothes on. Here's her skirt with the belt in all her glory, and then here's her top. Of course, everything else is the same. You can kind of see how she looks on the back. So I guess, what should I do? How should I go about this? I guess let's just move her around. Give the right angles. Push her a little bit deeper in. So this is what she looks like. And just kind of rotate her so you can see the entire statue. And then we'll go for close-ups. The top half really is the important part. Her legs are pretty similar. So this is what she looks like with the cast off clothes put back on. We already kind of took a look at the clothes in the first part of the review, but I think it's worth seeing how they look on her. Looks quite good. See the nice texturing again on the top, except now it's on her. Looks good. All right. So before kind of getting into my thoughts on Tifa, the way she's going to be displayed, let's go back and talk about the process of doing this, because this is kind of important if you happen to be the fortunate or unfortunate owner of one of these Pink Studio Tifas. Now, I debated, actually the order in which I was going to review this piece. I mean, should I have reviewed it the way she's going to go in the display cabinet or the way she's going to be displayed? No, this is normal Tifa with the clothes on, so to speak, and then kind of show the cast off version, the nude version. Well, I decided to give you the nude version with the the bikini, the small little bikini cast offs first, because that's obviously the way she came, right? That's how you build her. So she came out of the box nude. And another thing is that without exaggeration, and if you've been kind of just perusing other Pink Studio reviews on YouTube, or you're going on Facebook, Chinese collectors, garage kit collectors, etc., you have heard the tales of the nightmare of these cast-off clothes. And I want to tell you that all of these tales are true. Some of them do not properly actually tell the true story of how terrible it is. And so therefore, there was no way I wanted to put these clothes on and then take them off for the nude review and then have to put them back on again for the final, obviously, display. That would have been a literal nightmare. So let's get into why this was such a problem. So you can see that in terms of the pieces, it's actually pretty simple. You put it on by snapping the top onto her chest and the back, and then you put the skirt with these brown, I don't know, like they're plastic as well, but the so-called straps, you put it over her, okay? So her head shouldn't be actually on. You're doing this, ideally you're doing this without the arms and without the head. And then after you snap the top on, you snap the mini skirt on as well, taking care to put the straps into proper position. And therein lies the nightmare. Ping Ping Studios really went super, super cheap with their design as well as the material of these cast off clothes. And when it comes out of the box, because they're so cheap and the material is so cheap, very likely from all of the temperature fluctuations as the statue has made its way to you from the factory, the plastic of both, the two pieces up top and the two pieces on the bottom, they're basically completely warped and they're not going to fit at all. Now there are little magnets. I'm going to look over here. You can see that there's a little seam line. There's little magnets that are supposed to help you snap them together. But again, they went ridiculously cheap, and if they're rare earth magnets, they're way too small. They're like grains of sand, and the magnetic attraction is simply not enough to overcome the warped plastic. The most egregious problem is with the skirt, which in my case was actually deformed to the point where they wouldn't even come together at all. And this is before even putting these clothes, or attempted to put those clothes on Tifa herself, okay? So how then are you going to go about doing this? Okay, well, Spartan Uruk on his channel mentioned this, but I don't think he gave it enough emphasis. He said, use either hot water or use a hair dryer, okay? Okay, so hot water, I did try that, is not gonna do. Even at the hottest, it'll get out of the faucet, which is pretty darn hot. It's going to soften maybe the plastic a little bit, but it simply is not going to make it malleable enough. So unless you want to dip this top and this skirt in boiling water, then water is not going to be what you're going to want to use, okay? Not to mention it does get wet, and it's not very practical to try to, dry up the statue with all this water everywhere, and you have to wait for it to evaporate. So it's a little bit messier. So you want to get the blow dryer. And my advice is to do the following. You're going to want to basically just snap the top, the back, and the front. You just snap it into place. It's not going to come together perfectly, but you're going to get it on. And honestly, like the front part is going to be kind of difficult to get onto around her breasts. And you're going to be afraid of scratching the breasts. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just gentle pressure, it'll snap right on. If you don't want to do that, you can, of course, try to heat this top with a hairdryer beforehand so you can bend it slightly. I just don't know if that's a very good idea, because then you're gonna sort of warp that top a little bit. And I think the better thing to do is just simply to snap the top on. Now, it's going to magnetize on the side right here and on the top over here, and that's going to be repeated on both sides, of course. So you can see the seam line down here, and then you can see the seam line up here. And it's going to look horrible, okay? It's going to be way, way off. And so in order for you to get everything the way you like it, you're going to use your hairdryer at that point, and you're going to run that hairdryer and you're going to aim again at the cast off clothes, both the front and the back, and you're going to do this for like a good maybe 30-45 seconds, even maybe 1 minute. And depending on the power of your hairdryer, just keep on going really close, and as you do so, it's going to soften like crazy. And then when it's softened up and very, very malleable, you can use that opportunity to fine tune it and get the magnets to snap together, get the top to snap together, and then let it hold and then back off, okay? Now remember, you're doing this without the head and without the arms, so it'll be a lot easier, and you haven't put on the mini skirt yet, which means that these brown leather straps aren't in place. So in mine, just to give you some idea, this strap right over here was actually lifted straight up. It was about, I would say, a good maybe 4 millimeters off of her shoulder. and I just put my hair dryer in that area and just, softened it. And after probably about 30 seconds, it got so soft that the plastic actually fell onto the shoulder, and then the magnet, kind of engaged, and then it, snapped together perfectly. So if you get this piece hot enough, it becomes really, really soft, and then you can use that advantage to create a very nice fit, and then you're done there, okay? The miniskirt is a nightmare. If you just look at these things wrong, here and here, 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 if you just look at them wrong, if you just look at these two straps wrong out of the corner of your eye, they will snap in a second, okay? So what you're gonna wanna do, and again, you can see the seam lines right here. So it separates, it opens like that, and it separates into the back and the front. And on this side, there's a little bit larger seam line. Again, it separates the front and the back, okay? You're going to carefully open it up like a clamshell, and you're gonna drop it over her body. And remember that these two things are gonna go on the outside of her breasts, on the outside of her chest. Before doing that, I would take the hairdryer and actually heat up the bottom and the straps. Just heat up the whole thing, preheat it with the hairdryer, so it's kind of soft and malleable and bendy, and then you can use that to kind of bend it around and get it in place. If you don't do that, there is a pretty good chance that no matter how gentle or careful you are, you're gonna snap it because it's too rigid. So I repeat, getting the mini dress onto her, just putting it over like her neck area and around her like chest, you're gonna want to use a blow dryer beforehand to soften things, okay? Now, unless you're very, very lucky, when you have that dress in position, it's going to be nothing like this. It's gonna be like 1 or 2 centimeters out of place. It's gonna look completely, utterly, ridiculously, like it wouldn't even come together. And we're not talking about like a millimeter, we're talking like a centimeter. It's like literally a fiasco, okay? So at that point, again, you need to be patient. The head's not there, the arm's not there, so it's just basically literally the plastic on her nude body. You take that blow dryer and slowly and methodically, you are going to blow dry the entirety of that mini skirt. I mean, we're talking the front, the back, the straps. You just keep blow drying until it's like super hot. It's so hot they can barely touch it. And when it gets that hot, it's gonna soften. And then that's when you're going to use that opportunity to, again, gently pull down so that it fits. You'll know it fits because, again, the back part of the skirt is gonna fit into her buttocks pretty perfectly. And then, again, you're magnetized at the top and the bottom on both sides. You pull it down so it just snaps, not even snaps, because it's gonna become as malleable as Play-Doh. And you need to get it that soft. You're gonna pull it gently downward. You're gonna get the back part to adhere to her buttocks properly. You're gonna know that's the proper fit, and you're gonna get the front part in there. And you're going to have to continue to blow dry as you gently bring those two miniskirt halves together. And again, mine was so bad that the top part was actually indented. It was actually off by literally a centimeter, and I actually heated it so much that I was actually able to gently move the actual plastic into position so that it perfectly clasped together. And you can see, even with all of that, as it cooled, a little gap still opened up. You can still see this little area where it's really supposed to be like that. And I mean, if I really wanted to, I could superheat it again and then try to make it better, but I was just sick and tired of doing this. I mean, I was blow drying this thing for honestly like 15, 20 minutes. It's just like driving me crazy. And so I think this is about as good as it gets. It's as good as I can make it. Believe it or not, the magnets are engaged. And so that's how you did it. And while you're doing that, you will inevitably make little scratches. Like the belt will leave little brown marks on her skin. Obviously the black will leave little black marks. Mine has some black marks on the belly and on the arm as well. So what I do is I just take a very small eraser, like the eraser, like a pink eraser or the white eraser at the end of a pencil, and then just very gently start applying pressure. And sometimes it does, to be honest, it does require a little bit more than just gentle pressure. You have to really take the thing and just kind of really rub it. and then it'll get the little scratches and black marks off. And I have a makeup brush, and I use the makeup brush to move away and just clear the little tiny eraser markings and the kind of the junk that you create when you're doing erasing. And so, as you can see, you can't see any of the marks. I got rid of all of that, okay? But if you do what I tell you to do, that will really decrease the amount of marks they're going to make on her body. It is going to be inevitable because you're going to require some pressure to squeeze together the skirt and the top. So there's going to be some scratches. That's inevitable. And if you take this top off, 100% you're going to scratch the breasts on the side as you leverage it out. But here it won't look as bad because it's kind of like, it's like a gray color. But black and the brown leather really shows up very easily. So that's something, again, to consider. So it was literally a nightmare, and that is the #1 criticism of the Ping Ping Studios piece, which is incredible laziness and horrible cost cutting and cutting corners when it came to engineering the cast-off clothes. That's just absolutely inexcusable for a statue that I think retail is going to sell for over $500, especially when you actually factor in the hundreds of dollars it costs to actually ship this thing to you if you live outside of Asia. It's just a fiasco. And so it's an embarrassment what they did with these clothes. And I do feel for those people who initially got her in and didn't know all of these tricks. I'm fortunate in that I did actually, figure it out. I did look at these YouTube videos. I did try various things. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be able to get these clothes on without breaking it or without scratching her to hell and back without that hairdryer, without that blow dryer. So get that ready and use it very liberally. And it has to be hot. We're talking so hot you can barely touch the plastic. It's so hot that the plastic actually begins to soften. And you'll know what I'm talking about. When it's that hot, you can literally move the plastic however you want. And you're going to need to have that level of malleability to essentially overcome the horrible quality that it comes to initially. Okay, I'm not even kidding. Her clothes are going to come to you essentially warped beyond recognition. They don't fit at all, and you're going to have to superheat it to get it back into the proper position. And the only way to really do that is on her body. So just be prepared for that. Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's why obviously once those clothes get put on, it's extremely unlikely that I'm going to be taking those clothes off again for any reason. All right. Again, you're going to see these little seam lines, but that will have to do. So I will do another review later on, kind of comparing the Ping Ping Studios Tifa with the Neoclassicism O2 Studios Tifa, and sort of comparing, contrasting them and what I like about each. But I'll tell you right now that in terms of the intelligence of the clothes, the Neoclassicism destroys Ping Ping Studios. But I think like everything destroys Ping Ping Studios when it comes to the clothes. And yeah, it does hurt watching some of these YouTube reviewers essentially breaking their statues in real time as they're trying to get it together. There's all this talk about using blue tack, using silly putty, even using super glue, having to super glue the broken straps. So that's all very, very tough to hear. But if you want to know the solution is none of that. Spartan Urich was the one who kind of nailed it, even though he said also use hot water, which is that's not going to work. Get the blow dryer, get that ready, and then get your pencil, the pencil eraser head ready, and the makeup brush. And those are the three things you're going to need to put this gal together and then to clean it up afterward. Okay, so there you have it. That was the ordeal of getting her put together like this. Now, having done that, we can actually get to the heart of this, which is that she looks pretty awesome. Okay, again, there's going to be some limitations because obviously what you're looking at here is not the clothes, on her chest. It's actually literally a cast of her breasts in the shape of her gray top and then snapped onto her nude body. And that's kind of the problem with these cast off statues. is that you're never going to have the beautiful detail of sculpting clothes truly resting naturally on the underlying body. I mean, that can only be done if you sculpt the clothes on to begin with and you don't make a cast off. By the very limitation of this type of design, you are limiting the amount of detail that's possible sculpting really tight fitting clothing onto the body. And again, whether it's male or female, it doesn't really matter. It would be the same if this was a man, for instance, with his genitals, for whatever reason, sculpted for you to see, and then you're gonna snap on some boxer shorts, you're gonna snap on some trousers. Again, just like I said in the last Tifa review, it's kind of uncomfortably similar to the sort of things you do when you go to Disneyland. You buy these little plastic figurines, and you're just basically snapping different dresses on Elsa and Anna and Sophia the First and all of that. And obviously, this is way more mature, and it's also a little bit more, a little slightly better quality. Although embarrassingly, I think even the Disney toys have better quality than what we're seeing here. So of course, granted, it's to the next level, but that's kind of in a nutshell the idea. You're still kind of doing that. Okay, it's basically just a more mature, advanced version of playing with your Disney plastic figurines, which is not very good. So you have the underlying statue, the underlying nude statue, which is beautifully sculpted, and then you sort of ruin it in terms of the leveling of detail by putting on these clothes. But with those limitations in mind, of course, the shoes are still magnificent. The base is still, just amazing, and her arms are still very good. The portrait is still incredible, and again, mine is a Singapore. It's not a recast, and my eyes are perfect, so it's completely fine. So it's beautifully done, and taken as a gestalt, taken as a whole. When you just kind of look at her, you're not going super close. Like, we're not talking like we're going 1 centimeter away, and you get to actually see the seam lines and all of that. Although this close, you can still appreciate the detail even in the cheap plastic. The material's cheap, but still the actual detailing is very, very good. So in any case, if you look back, she looks very, very good. Now, again, I feel like if the clothes had been sculpted onto her from the very beginning, she would look even better. But with the limitations of these cast off clothes, the top and the skirt, she has a great look. Just moving from here, I think giving the various angles, I don't have very much to complain about. She looks fantastic, and the pieces don't look too cheap, but you can obviously tell that these two clothes are, again, cast off clothes. Okay, there's nowhere near the detail that you would get if they were sculpted onto the body from the very beginning. But for what it's worth, it still looks really, really good. And again, I'll get to that when I start comparing the two statues, but that might be one way in which the neoclassicism Tifa kind of helps, because what happens is that instead of forcing you to snap the top onto her breasts, they actually went and they actually cast a separate pair of breasts. So they would give you the breasts with the t-shirt or the top sculpted onto it, and then they would just give you the nude breasts. And it was actually like an interchangeable part, much like you would put a change of head or a change of arms. They gave you basically a change of torso, which was kind of creepy, it was kind of weird, but in doing so, they definitely have a much better defined anatomical chest and much better detail as far as the top is concerned. Now, they decided to deal with the skirt in the same way here, and you do have to take the front and the back and press it together, and so in that way, you do lose definition of the buttocks. But at least the neoclassicism Tifa took care of the torso, so to speak, correctly. Okay. So overall, I know that there's a lot of videos kind of trashing this Tifa, or that's not kind of satisfied with it. But I will tell you that overall, this is still one of the best Tifa statues that I think out there, as long as you're able to put in a little bit extra work. People don't talk about the base. They don't talk about the detailing of these shoes. And this is actually, honestly, like the best shoes, I think, of all of the Tifa statues. It looks natural, it looks accurate, it's incredibly well detailed, and when you compare it to some of the other Tifa offerings, their shoes look a little bit cartoonish, almost like oversized. Now I realize that that's part of the deal, is that these are bigger shoes, but you can see with the socks and the legs that this is actually, it's not ridiculous. It actually looks, it looks fine. It looks like it actually is in scale with the rest of Tifa herself. Okay, so they don't talk about that. Of course, none of the reviews are able to show you the beautiful sculpture of the female anatomy underneath, which we went over. The pose is very good. This is a very, very nice classic Tifa pose. There's a lot of other companies like Greenleaf Studios or X2 Studios. It's showing Tifa doing kind of weird things. There's Tifa in an action pose. There's Tifa raising her arms above her head, leaning against a pillar. There's Tifa in different costumes, like one in the purple dress, one in the Playboy bunny dress. I don't really like those because if you want to get a Tifa, you do want her to be in her iconic costume, this is her iconic costume for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and you want her in an iconic pose. And this is kind of the iconic pose where one of them is, her left hand and a fist resting on her hips, and the other hand saying, "Oh, come on." And the neoclassicism is the other iconic Tifa pose, which is her pulling on the gloves, getting ready for combat. And so it's important, I think, that when you're deciding what's going to be the best Tifa out there, you want it to be an iconic pose and an iconic costume. And this is definitely a fantastic pose. It's not too crazy, not too wild. It's elegant. It's it's sexy, confident. This is a beautiful pose. Okay. In terms of the portrait, a little bit of a missed opportunity. We don't have glass eyes, but I think for the neoclassicism, I actually prefer the portrait without the glass eyes. This is a beautifully painted, beautifully done portrait. It looks fantastic. You can see the seam line here a little bit, which is a little, again, kind of just a little bit sloppy from Ping Ping Studios, but luckily you tend to see her either straight on or kind of like this, and the hair hides the neckline here, so the only visible area is right about here. So you have to have a very specific angle to catch that seam line, and most of the time that's hidden reasonably well. You can actually move it a little bit, so that's done very nicely. So portrait is great, overall impression is great. Is she as beautiful as the render? She is not, but again, in the hands of a skilled portrait paint master, I bet you could come really, really close. Okay, I bet you can come really, really close. So overall, my overall final impression of the Ping Ping Studios statue, I'm gonna go, showing you the whole thing and then just gently closing up, is I think this is a very solid 8 out of 10. You just have to do a lot of extra work with your hair dryer to get the clothes to properly, get on the figure without damaging it really badly. And again, if you're watching this video, you're going to be able to do that. Okay, you're going to be able to do that. And so if the clothes are put on properly, then she really is a pretty fantastic statue. And I don't think that necessarily you got cheated. You're going to feel that you get cheated if you break her trying to again put her on, and then you have like literally a 1.5 centimeter gap, and it seems completely impossible to get the skirt on without destroying the statue. But if you're able to use the hairdryer trick, everything melts and then recongeals. You've basically got what the promise is. And in my opinion, this is definitely one of the nicest Tifas on the market. Her face, of course, looks nothing like Tifa from Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it is one of the prettier portraits out there and done very, very nicely. So I do like this face. I kind of almost like as a joke, I'm just wondering, it's kind of funny, like why is it that there's so many different Chinese companies doing unlicensed Tifa pieces, and not one of them is able to get the actual face correct? I mean, you would think that wouldn't be all that hard. I mean, she's in a video game. How hard could it be to get digital files? I mean, within literally a day of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Los Angeles Lakers getting their championship ring, Chinese factories have the molds of the rings. They're already making replicas. If they're able to do that, I mean, how hard could it be to get a screen accurate Tifa? Every one of them not only have they failed, it's almost like they're not interested in doing so. And maybe I wonder if like that's some sort of weird thing that we don't understand or appreciate. There's some weird way of trying to get around copyright protection, or something like that. I don't know. But I just think it's rather instructive that MH Studios recently just came out. I just saw the production sample. Solid statue, but not as good as Ping Ping Studios in my opinion. Okay, not as good, not as beautiful. No, and what is it? Mayfly Studios had one. Again, closer. It's a closer likeness to Final Fantasy VII Remake Tifa. Closer likeness, but not as beautiful. And the pose, the details, the anatomy, not as good. The base obviously not as good. So I still believe, in my opinion, that the two I bought, the Neoclassicism and the Ping Ping Studios, despite their flaws, despite the extra work that's required to make them look good, those two, in my opinion, represent two of the best Tifa statues on the market, actually. And again, because when you take into account everything, the portrait, the pose, the costume, the compromise between the beautiful anatomy underneath versus a little bit of the cheapening of the cast clothing, all that put together, makes a difference, in my opinion. Of course, then the base as well. And both of those Tifas, the Neoclassicism and the Ping Ping Studios, have a bit more of an ambitious base, and that shows as well. The two best bases, in my opinion. All right, so I'm going to make another video just sort of comparing those two. It shouldn't be an hour long each. It's just going to be very quickly looking at the two and talking about it. And lest we forget, we're going to put this coin on there. I also think that both Neoclassicism as well as the Ping Ping Studios have very, very classy certificates of authenticity. In the case that they have their own little stand, it's actually a nice metal coin, very, very, again, classy. And the Neoclassicism has a metal card. So that's something I didn't really notice with some of the other offerings. So overall, with the exception of the, understandably significant flaw of the clothes and how to overcome that, I do feel like, Ping Ping Studios did deliver on what they set out to do. And I'm actually very, very pleased and very, very happy with how the statue came out. You just have to do a lot of research and a lot more work to get everything to properly come together. So anyways, that's my review of the Ping Ping Studios Tifa statue. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a lot of detail, but I think it's going to be one of the most comprehensive and one of the most complete reviews of this piece on YouTube for a variety of factors. And like I said, let's hope that the video is going to be able to be allowed to stay up per the YouTube rules. I don't think I violated any of it, but we shall see. And it could also very well be that they simply care too little about such a small channel as myself, where I'm just kind of doing this for myself and for the occasional person out there who's interested in this. But if you want to know what Ping Ping Studios Tifa truly is like, then I think this is one of the few YouTube review videos out there. And I think I've seen almost all of them. I don't think there's one more comprehensive and more detailed than this. You know exactly what you are getting. And again, just be careful. Mine is from Singapore, number 13 out of, I forget, I think 200 or so. Let me take a look at this thing here. 199, actually, not 200, but 199. So mine is 13 out of 199 from Singapore, but there might be another 199 from Thailand, another 199 from Taiwan, if you look at some of the other reviews. And how many of those are actually recast or whatnot, we don't know. Again, when it's not licensed, there's not much difference between recast and so-called original. So anyways, I'm gonna take my leave. In my next video, we'll compare the two Tifas and kind of highlight what's so special about each of them and why I believe those are the two best ones I think on the market. So until then, do take care. Bye-bye.